Hello, everybody. This is Carl Settles, the founder and executive director of E for Youth. I know, I'm not Jaleisha Bass, and I'm not 10. I'm not a digital docent. Normally, we have our digital docents running the show. But as it turns out, they are so successful and busy doing internships with the MAPE program from 4As and various and other sundry things going to class that they weren't available today. This is actually our last virtual talk of the summer. We'll start back again in September. But this is going to be a great one. We've got an amazing guest with us today. I guess if you're tuned in, you already know that that's going to happen. So I'm not going to spoil that. Just very quickly, E for Youth, or what is now E for Youth, started actually 13 years ago. And the focus of E for Youth is to engage, educate, employ, and empower creative youth. If a young student of color says, hey, I want to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, everybody gets happy. But if somebody says they want to make films or write or draw, everybody starts trying to talk them out of doing that. Whereas and a lot of times the more affluent kids, they get to indulge those things. They get access to private lessons, experiences, they build relationships. And we know from based on evidence that students that get exposed to the creative arts, they get better grades, they are more likely to graduate, they get better jobs, and they're also more likely to give back to the community. So that is really the basis or the underlying force that drives what we do with E for Youth. Today, we have an amazing guest and also a new E for Youth partner. We're going to talk about that partnership here in a little bit. But his name is Adam Butler, and he is the founder of the Butler Brothers, advertising agency here in Austin. And I'm just going to give you a little rundown of his bio. After graduating from the University of Texas with a BS in communications, Adam went on to an award-winning 7-year run at GSD&M Advertising. In 2002, he founded the Butler Brothers Brand Studio. The studio has led brand-defining work for College Board, Texas Children's Hospital, American Institute of Architects, Truth Initiative, Chariot Energy, Austin FC, and a host of beloved Central Texas brands: Thinkery, Real Ale Brewing, Austin Parks Foundation, We Are Blood, and the Shield Ranch. These works have been featured in the New York Times, Fast Company, USA Today, CBS, and CNN. He is a founding board member of FarmShare Austin, a member of the Austin Parks Foundation's Groundbreakers, and a steering committee member for the Shield Ranch. Adam is a grateful husband to his wife of 15 years. Smart move there, Adam. You got to give the wife props. Hold on. I need to give my wife props as well. Love you, baby. Julie Butler is his wife, and he's the proud father of 3 boys, Wilson, Davis, and Noah. You'll find Adam recreating in the outdoors, most often on a bicycle or in the sacred waters of Barton Springs, where he swims laps year-round. So I'm going to welcome to the screen Adam Butler. How you doing, Adam? Why am I not? Oh, you're muted. There you go. We need to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself, Adam? There, you're unmuted. Try talking.
Hello, hello.
There we go. All right. How you doing, Adam?
Doing good. Thank you for the intro, Carl.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Adam, I know that you have a presentation.
Yes, sir.
big part of what we like to do with these virtual talks is have creatives like yourself really just talk about their journey to success. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up your presentation. And if you can make that full screen,
Will
and
do.
I will hand the mantle over to you, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to put this into full screen mode so you don't see all my extra slides. While I'm doing that, I want to give a shout out to Alicia Pack from my team for helping me build this prezo, and she did a great job. And I told her some stories from back in the day as we were doing this. So, Carl, all of a sudden I'm losing access to go full screen here. I'm going to try again. Sorry. Huh. I might just have to roll with it.
Roll with it, man. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. So now you'll know where I'm going with this, which is kind of cool too. So Carl's introduction gave some great background on where I've been in my career, and really what I want to do today is kind of zoom in on the time frame from when I was about 15 to until I was 29, because in reflecting on and preparing for this presentation, what I realized was the learning curve I was on in that time frame of my life, the privileges that I had in getting certain opportunities, the way I seize those opportunities, and just the blessings of sort of pieces of information coming in that don't seem like they're that profound initially, but they really make up the way you approach your work. And so doing the rewind and hitting some highlights, I think, and I hope, will help you see the moments that you have can have such profound impacts on who you become. And I'm 47 years old now, so I kind of am invoking some old man juice there. I'm not that old, but I think you know what I mean. It's hard to see some of these things unless you look back. So I just want to start by saying that we're all works in progress. You know, nobody's fully cooked at any point in their life. The best and coolest elders that you meet in life are still learning, are still reading, are still thinking big, and that's always inspired me. Man, Carl. Oh, here we go. Now I'm good. So that's just a framework for me, myself, that I keep in mind, but also in running a studio. Um, you know, frequently you feel like you have to have all the answers, but the truth is you have to have the better questions, because that's how you get to great work. So this is an operating principle. I'm going to, like I said, share about a 13-year span in life, and then we'll talk more about uh, some of what we can all carry forward as we all journey into our work together. So this is my family. This is my sibling crew with their significant others, nieces and nephews, god dogs. um, and my dad used to say that his kids were his resume. He believed that the work that he was putting in to his children was the most profound and important work of his life. Um, that's a good foundation, right? You know, you know that your parents are telling you things or not telling you things, encouraging you or discouraging you. But I had a very encouraging father who let me know he was proud of me, and that was a huge boost. And so the shout out is being given, because I think this togetherness that I experience in working with my brother and my sister, who also works for the Butler Bros, and the kind of the big family energy that we had really has infected the culture of my business, and I'm very grateful for that. Um, my mom was the one who was always prompting us to really be critical of situations we were in and advocate for ourselves. This was a core message that she sort of delivered to us a lot of different ways through our life. And it was something that became really important as I started to navigate corporate culture, uh, in particular, of being nervous about my place, but realizing that if you don't speak up, you can get overlooked. So shout out to mom for that. This is Marty and I, and standing and leaning against our dad's paint van, which was like a rolling sermon when we were kids. We learned a lot in that van. And as one of my friends in high school used to say, no wonder your dad's so happy. He's always driving around in a van full of paint. But a lot of education took place in that van. We learned a lot about core values of operating a business from our dad. And we'll come full circle on that at the end. So when I was 14, we moved. We grew up in Austin, but we moved out into the boonies. And one of the people that we moved close to was a girl named Amy Gersich. And Amy Gersich, if her name sounds familiar, it's because the G in GST&M is Steve Gersich. That was her dad. And as we got to know her, one day she said, I think you guys would like my dad's company. She was responding to our energy, our laughter, our creativity. We didn't know anything about that industry. I was 15 years old. That summer, I got my driver's license and I started to hound her dad. There was no texting. I think I went by the house and then I called and said, could I work in the mailroom? Because that's what Amy had suggested. I was graciously received into the mailroom and given ginormous boxes of mail to physically deliver all over the office, which was a thrill because Amy was right. I did like her dad's company. The first day I was there, I delivered mail to a man named Terrence Reynolds' office. Terrence Reynolds had framed in his office the same poster that I had tacked up on my wall in my bedroom. And that was sort of the first inkling that I realized that there was a cultural thing going on in advertising where people could kind of be forever young and celebrate the things that that they had passion for in a corporate environment. And that to me was like a revelation. I was like, oh my gosh, this man has the same poster as this boy. So that fired me up. And it was just one of many things I saw at that time. Getting into the environment and doing anything was a huge opportunity because you can roll up on anybody and start asking questions, which led to a really formative experience. There was a gentleman named Doug Lyon, who I often refer to as my first mentor in the business. And he had all these photographs from photo shoots all over the walls of his office at GST&M. And I remember looking at something. It was a still from a TV commercial that he had made for RC Cola, which had won some international awards. And I was so naive. I saw this photograph and I said, is that the RC Cola ad where the person gets caught like a fish? And there's, for years you've been fed the same old line. There's only two great tasting colas, and it was making fun of Coke and Pepsi. And the tagline was something like "Think Different." It wasn't "Think Different," but it was a guy drinking RC Cola while he was looking at two people who had been hooked by Coke and Pepsi cans hanging upside down like fish on a dock. And I'd seen the ad, and I expressed this interest. And Doug at that moment asked me, "Have you ever made an ad before?" Which is like kind of a creepy question if you think about it. But the answer was no, I hadn't made an ad before. But it was the invitation into making ads. Doug was very entrepreneurial. He's a serial entrepreneur now. He started multiple businesses. Google Doug Lyon, and you'll find things he's done. I didn't know all that. I didn't know how entrepreneurial he was, but what he basically did was he put me to work for him. Um, and it was the first time that I learned that having a side hustle while you have another job is the way you grow and nurture the next thing you want to do. And so he invited me into his world. He gave me real briefs to work on, and I told my brother Marty about this. And within a year and a half, Marty and I were both Doug's unpaid interns, but it was super cool because it was like a rogue program just for us. Around this time, I started studying communications at UT shortly after graduation. And, you get hit with a ton of things in college. Um, and it's crazy because when you look back, there's probably 15 very formative moments or things that teachers or people said to me that shaped me. But one of the most profound was a professor I had named Tom Campbell. He was a Marine, a decorated Marine, and I took a leadership class in the School of Management from him. And the last day of class, after talking about the art of war and Karl von Clausewitz and all of these really heady leadership frameworks and philosophies, on the last day, he just said, "Find your own road." It was like a bomb to me because it was an invocation for entrepreneurship. Um, and I wasn't studying entrepreneurship. I was studying speech communication, still desperately trying to figure out what I was going to do career wise. I had an inkling that I wanted to go back to GSD&M and intern before I graduated from college, which I ended up doing. But Tom Campbell planted the seed of entrepreneurship in my brain at that time. And he taught me a lot of other things too about how to show up in the space ready to work. So I give a huge shout out to that. And he's also, like my parents, gone from the planet sadly, but I did get to tell him how profound his impact was on me before he passed. Um, so I graduated from UT. I had done a bunch of creative work on the side. I had gone back into the file room from the mailroom, a major promotion in the annals of organization. And I was given this messy file room one summer to clean up. And it was super cool because in that file room, I saw 25 years worth of GSD&M's work. GSD&M is about 45 years old now. And this was about 20 some odd years ago. So there was a lot of work in there. And I started to reverse engineer campaigns and just get a huge dose of work. Started seeing things I liked and didn't like. I was the king of my castle, the file room. I really wanted to be a copywriter. I had gotten some advertising produced as an intern. I continued to work on briefs even when I was in the file room. And I was offered a job as a traffic manager. And that is not the same as a copywriter, as you all know. And it was my foot in the door. I took the job. It was very fortuitous because I didn't know I'd one day be running my own business, and having an understanding of traffic was a massive leg up for me. But what a traffic manager does is move the work around inside the studio. And we didn't have a digital workflow at that time, so it was very analog. People would open a job, I would type it up in triplicate, I would tear it across, staple it to files, and run around the building. It was like from the 1950s, but it was the 1990s. And I really got to meet the account people, the production managers, the production artists, the creative directors, the writers, the art directors. I was sat in on client calls. I got to survey how the whole business works. And lest you think I was just great at this and that I was completely focused on being the best traffic manager of all time, I was sat down by Dorian Gerard, my boss, about 3 months into this job where I had my eye on that creative prize. And she said, "Adam, you're not giving this job your best effort. I know what you want to do, but you need to get great at this before you're ever going to have an opportunity to do that. And it was a bit of a smackdown. Um, I wasn't fully committed to the job that I got. I had my eye someplace else, and it was a huge lesson for me about taking care of what's in front of you and uh, and betting on the learning that it will give you, which for me in this case was a ton. And so I've always been grateful for Dorian for giving me my first hard talking to in a professional environment. So Marty and I kept grinding on the side. Marty was now interning in the art department at GSTM. He was managing a room where all of the photo negatives lived, and I was traffic manager. Um, we were working with Doug and other creatives in the creative department, just trying to grab opportunities. The cool thing about GSTM, it was a pretty entrepreneurial culture, especially then. It hadn't grown as much. It was about 300 people. It was an exciting place to be. There was opportunity laying around as Marty and I saw it. Um, the agency was pitching Mazda, and Marty and I got our hands on the pitch brief. And when you're pitching in a big agency, especially in the old days, although some of these dynamics are the same today, ideas are welcome, ideas are wanted. And Marty and I and our friend Jared and some others would stay up at night coming up with terrible ideas that would never work, which we didn't know at the time. But we had so much optimism. We were young and we could stay up all night. And so that's exactly what we did. We just kept pounding ideas. Well, one of our ideas broke through. Our idea was for Mazda, what if cars could choose people instead of people choosing cars? And it was a hilarious moment when we shared this idea with our kind of creative sponsor. And then he was like, I like this idea. I want to show this to the executive creative director. He showed it to the executive creative director. This idea has some merit. He shows it to the president of the agency, Roy Spence. Roy Spence is like, beep, beep. I love this beeping idea. And all of a sudden, our idea is off the front of this whole pitch. And it was a moment when we were like, oh my God, ideas, ideas ideas have their own power. And the amount of people that started to work on that idea, the amount of strategy that came in and behind and around that idea was mind boggling. Like we literally had a small idea written on a spiral notebook. It wasn't even fully baked, but it was enough. And there ended up being a big Texas Monthly article about this that Marty and I got name checked in. They messed up the facts, but the point was we had a chip, and Keith, who was the manager of the creative department, looked at us and said, well, what do you guys want? And we're like, we want to be partners. That was our big idea. We just want jobs and we want to be partners. And we got that. And Keith, I also remember said, if you guys ever get in a fist fight, I'm going to fire you. We did not get in a fist fight inside GSTN's building, at least. So Marty and I we partnered up. We did that for about a year. We got to eat sushi for the first time in LA. I mean, we did a lot of things we'd never done in our lives. And we got to go on television productions. The industry was very TV heavy at the time. So production was a blast. And we worked so hard to sell our ideas for TV spots because we knew we were going to get to experience people and places and things that we had never seen in our lives. And it was super motivating for us to do that. Marty and I worked together for about a year and a half, and then we found other partners to work with inside the agency. One of my first creative directors was a woman named Joan Lyons. She was a New Yorker. Our parents were New Yorkers. She had a great way about her. She was very direct. And I remember being in a meeting early, one of my first client meetings with her, and she said, I could tell the client didn't like the ideas. So I got defensive and I started trying to sell. And I was probably 24 or 5 years old, like not exactly the person that everyone was looking to in a moment of tension for the answers. And after the meeting, Joan pulled me aside and she just said, Adam, your job's to listen, not to speak. You have a lot to learn. Um, and it's okay if you just listen. You don't have to speak. You're going to learn a lot through osmosis. So that's what I need you to do right now. So I did that. It took a lot of pressure off me, and it was very helpful advice. Um, the truth is, it's advice I still employ to this day. When you're asking good questions and someone gets going, you just let them talk. That's where insight comes from. Come up with a great question, generative inquiry, listen, 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 ask a smarter question, a better question, a deeper question. One of my professors at UT said you should ask why 50 times a day, or you are a patsy. You are being manipulated. I think that's true. And the answers to those questions can be painful sometimes when you ask them of yourself or even of your clients. Certainly in culture right now, we have a lot of painful answers to some of the hardest questions that we're asking as a country. But if we don't ask the questions, we don't progress towards understanding and answers. So the profound wisdom of Joan Lyons. The other thing I learned from a great creative director named Brian Brooker was not to be harsh on my own work, to do the work, to release, to make, to be free, to let it come out. And then when you have a creative boss, you have to enter into a trusting relationship with that individual, and you have to show them all your bad ideas. As you get older in your career, there's less patience for all your bad ideas. But when you're young, it's sort of expected of you. And a great creative director or a great creative partner will help you sort out the diamonds in the rough. I'll never forget, we were working on AIDS Services of Austin, PSA, 1998, and Brian Brooker. We had an idea. We had seen some found footage of a person threading a needle with their feet, and we were like, "How does this work for the AIDS walk? There's something here." It needed a line though, and Ryan Brooker said, Adam, I want you to go home tonight and I want you to take out a paper and pencil and I want you to cover this page with lines. I want you to fill it up. I do not want you to edit. I am going to do that, but you need to fill this up tonight. This is a idea that's on the precipice of being great and it just needs the right line. And I wrote all this stuff and I didn't even know what was good. I just did what he told me to do. One of the lines I wrote was, your feet can do more than you think. And that line, when he saw it, he circled it on the page. I still have this piece of paper. I couldn't find it, but it was so profound to me. He looked at everything. He circled this one line and said, this is the line. And Brian was very awards focused, as many people in the industry were at that time, and said, I want you to clear off some space on your award shelf, is what he said. And it was funny because I didn't even have any awards. But that ad won one of the most prestigious awards in the industry because I trusted him. I was just a conduit. I was just doing the work and learning and finding people to trust around me. So I worked there for 7 years. This is actually a photo that Alicia found. I don't even know where she found this. So Alicia, big ups to you for finding this one. But this is Marty and I on our first TV shoot, probably in 1990, late 97 or 98. And we were in LA for the first time in our lives. As I just mentioned before, we had sushi for the first time in our lives. This is us just like pinching ourselves that we found our way into a career and being partners and brothers. We're only 14 months apart. So we were having a blast. And we both continued to do the work. Marty actually moved to Portland with his girlfriend at the time and was freelancing. I, after 7 years and a lot of pitches, was ready to take a break. And for me, with $2,200 in my savings account, that meant just probably waiting tables if I needed to, but I was pretty burned out and I realized it, which was a hard thing to admit to myself. I wasn't feeling good. I was looking at a long climb on the corporate ladder, which was there to do, but it was also sort of like I didn't have the mojo for it at the time. And so I decided to take a break, and I did quit, but I didn't like throw up my hands and scream and quit and roast everybody. I just told the partners and people that I worked with that I just really needed a break, that I was going to go back to being a waiter if I had to for a while, just clear my head, try to travel. I didn't travel when I was a kid. I didn't travel in college. I wanted to do some of those things and have some different life experiences that weren't just driven by the latest creative brief. So I did that. And when I got refreshed and I was coming off the end of that, Marty was looking to move back to Austin, and he said, "Hey, why don't we just team up?" And it was literally a phone call. And Marty said that. It's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's team up. What should we call ourselves? The Butler Bros. So that's how we got our name. We joke with people that it's not marketing. It's like autobiographical. But that's really what we did. We teamed up as a freelance team. I was 29. I was actually 27. Marty was 26, 25. We did not have a network of people that could hire us, i.e. clients that had budgets, because we were too young in the business. So we didn't have that, and we didn't know that we didn't have that, thank goodness. We did have enough money to buy laptops, which we did. Marty had always been a photographer. I was a writer. Marty was an art director. I was a strategist. We basically quickly realized how insane it was to start an agency with two people that didn't really know anything about running an agency and didn't have all the departmental support that we'd had before, didn't have a pipeline of potential new business, but we just started hustling. And we had our first pitch meeting, and Marty told the client, we know you're talking to other people, but we're the only people who are going to stay up all night and worry about this. And I think that was the hook for the person we were talking to at the time. An entrepreneur himself, he realized that we were very hungry, and that our honesty about that was sort of our word as bond guarantee that we were going to do the work, and the risk was low enough for him to get the work that he took it with us. Steve Gersich, coming full circle to Mr. G, Steve G. When I left GST&M, I asked each of the partners a series of questions, and I wrote all their answers down in a journal. I still have it. Steve Gersich said, "Do not be afraid to talk about money. Don't ever be afraid to talk about money, because you have to. And creative people are terrible at it, because you want to be seen as creative. The reward of being recognized for being creative is a massive reward in and of itself. However, you have good ideas is not a sentence you can eat." And so I struggled with this. I never felt like the value that we were providing was worth the money we needed to make. It was a long struggle over the course of the 17 years that we've run a business. And it's been a huge learning curve for me the whole time. I didn't go to business school. Our parents weren't working in corporate environments. They were teaching us values and how to advocate for ourselves, but they didn't give us a playbook on this. And I recently called Steve Gersich, and I said, I thanked him so much for this, because it does suss out opportunity when you can see if it's attached to resources that you need to live. I think this is a great area to talk more about as each of you endeavor in your creative journeys, but there needs to be an equitable exchange of value when you do this work. You have a gift, you're on a journey of doing it. Not all of the learning should be on your own dime. It's not sustainable. So big shout out to CG. 17 years later, I'm still learning. These dudes are my teachers now. These are my sons. They are handing it to me. I cannot wait to work with eForce team and students to give me knowledge about what I'm about to be facing as these three individuals become teenagers. One of our core values at the Butler Bros is to never stop learning. No client wants you to say, I know everything. It's not attractive. No life partner, no business partner. There's always humility to learn more. It's a core value. And it's a great core value for life. Mean it without being mean. This is another core value of the Butler Bros. How can you say something that needs to be said without crushing a spirit, without being rude? The way you do your creative work is a huge part of what your reputation becomes. And this goes for the relationships you have inside a studio, but it also goes for the relationship you have with clients. Being honest sometimes with your own truth or what you've learned from the work is hard. And sometimes it takes courage to say what you see. That's meaning it, saying it in a way that other people can hear it, saying it in a way that the truth can be told and known is really important. The business can get really stressful, and sometimes, it brings out the worst in people, but a commitment to doing it with some grace is really important. Getting home for dinner is one of our core values. That's our dad's paint van. He was always home for dinner. So when we started our own firm, it took us years to figure out this was a core value in a lot of ways. But what we realized is a big reason why we started the business, which wasn't even always clearly articulated, was so that we could be with our families, so that we could have quality time like our parents made for us. And it became an important part of the way we look at client opportunities, the way we look at the values of those that we might hire or collaborate with, even on the client side, and a commitment to not selling your family short is really important in our studio. And then keep on pushing this notion that the work isn't done even after it's done, because you're going to learn from that. So keep pushing, keep learning, and be resilient in the face of the creative challenges that you get through the brief. Sometimes, the page full of ideas has a gold nugget in it, but you don't know unless you do the work. So this is the ice cream man near our office, and he pushes through 100-degree heat all summer. We miss him. We're not in our offices anymore, but that's it. I just wanted to share some of the things that happened in my early career, and I welcome any questions. I know Carl's going to ask me some, but have at me.
Wow, that was really inspiring, Adam. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I took some notes. One of the things that I heard echoed through what you were talking about was the power of relationships.
Yeah.
The students that we work with, and just a little bit about my background. I'm a second generation college graduate. Both my parents had advanced degrees. I didn't know you could be creative and make a living at anything other than being a musician until I got into my 30s. Okay. And that really comes from there weren't, and there still are not proportionally that many people of color in the business. And so the fundamental thing I think about what we're doing with E4Youth, the magic of the secret sauce is the relationships.
Yes.
And that's something that we've really focused on developing with our partners.
Yes.
And that's why I feel like we're able to have a success. You know, the fact that you lived right around the corner from somebody who owned an advertising
Agency. Yeah.
you were able to develop relationships. And I think
100%.
I think there's sometimes, because you've worked hard, right? I think, and we all work hard, but I think sometimes we have a lack of perspective that some of us have more access to people
100%.
and resources than
Correct.
others don't, than others do. So I guess I'm asking you,
Yes.
because I've heard of the Butler brothers, and I've known, you know, folks that have worked with you. Even some of the people that are in E for Youth have worked with you. We'll talk about that in a minute. But with all the turmoil that's been happening, I looked in my email box, and I'm like, shit, the Butler brothers, like, hey, here's a check, and we want to partner. I mean,
Yeah.
So can you just talk about what was the impetus behind that? And what would you like to accomplish in partnering with E for Youth?
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I think you said it, you know, we talked about this common thread of recognizing the privilege of having an opportunity, right? Like when you reverse engineer our career, and as I was looking at diversity in our industry, I had to look back at my own life and go, okay, how did I get here? What happened? And what happened was Amy Gersich said, I think you'd like my dad's company. That's what happened. And it is totally about relationships. It's totally about building a bridge, which I know is a core value of E for Youth. And it's about getting in a situation where you can have more opportunities to see more opportunities, you know, because really that's my story. And Marty and I realized that if we hadn't have had that moment of meeting an Amy, that our lives wouldn't be the same. So what's so powerful about what you've created is you've created a framework and a platform to accelerate that. And we know that that's a place that we can teach what we know, but we can also learn by being in that environment. So that's why we're excited about it, and our studio is excited about it. And I'm grateful that you've done the work. You know, the reason we knew about E4 Youth and had worked together a little bit before in an unofficial capacity was because Brian Jesse, who was a founder of Magera Jesse, worked at GSD&M when we were very young. And when we started the agency, we asked him and Mark some questions that probably made them blush. They were such dumb questions. But they gave us some hard, real advice too. So I know you and Brian have an incredible background together. And again, it's relationships. I wouldn't have known about E4 Youth if I didn't know Brian. And so I'm grateful too that you're here in this community doing this work and that we can do it together.
Awesome. So I guess you've had some experience with folks that have not just with Brian, but I think James Granberry.
Yes.
Can you just talk about James and how that also helped inform you getting involved with the organization?
Yeah, James is his unofficial job title at the Butler Bros was the CQO, the Chief Questioning Officer, because James he asked meta questions all the time. And I loved that about him because he wasn't just trying to learn the job he was in, he was trying to learn the industry, everything about what was going on. And it made me realize a lot of things. One of the things that made me realize was how we don't always do a good job of telling our own story, because he would ask me questions that had me saying things I felt like I'd never said. And it also made me realize, you know, and we're a bootstrapped company. You know, we founded. We don't have outside investors. We don't have outside. We don't have a lot of debt. We have stayed a sustainable small business. We're 10 people. So James was making me realize things about what we learned about running the business. And I told him things. I told him some things that I hadn't really ever told anybody because they'd never asked. So I loved that about James, um, and I think that was a big part of his success because he was learning the industry and learning as a copywriter, which is what he wanted to do as a discipline. You often have to take the strategy that's emerging and really think about, you have to have empathy for your audience, and then you have to have knowledge of your client's product or service. And the amount of questions he asked helped him be better at his job too. So I was just so impressed with James, and as a human. I mean, he's just a good man. And I think we had I like to think, and I'd love, if he's on here, I'd love to hear from him. I'd love to know what he thinks of us.
Well, I know, just for a little background for folks, James actually has a journalism degree from University of Texas, and yes. I met him maybe 2-3 years ago, and he'd worked like at Oracle or something like that, and he hated it and was just kind of in a dead end. I told him about E for Youth, and he actually became a creative mentor. He's still a creative mentor to this day. He's awesome. Also a junior copywriter at McGarrett Jesse. But it was one of those things where I just asked him, said, and again, it's about those relationships, it's opening a door. Yes. Hey, this is what I do. And then I started, so you write, I said, well, he didn't even know the job title copywriter existed.
Yes.
Right? And so I started to hip him to that, introduced him to Brian Jesse.
Yes.
He ended up getting a scholarship to Portfolio School with Job Propulsion Labs with Bart Cleveland. And lo and behold, he's in the industry and still giving back to our students today. So yeah, I definitely the power of relationships, and he is an outstanding young guy, and I think he's got a promising future.
Oh yeah, 100% agree. Yeah,
I'm not sure if he's there or not. I have a couple of other things, and then we can get to some of the other questions. So these are questions that we talked about in our prep call, but
yes.
So what are some of your proudest moments with the Butler brothers? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, one of them was, we had a guy named JB Sauceda who worked with us for years, and he came in as an intern from UT, and he was a government major. He kind of, like, he had the creative itch, right? And Bridget, my sister, who's our operations director at the Butler Brothers, always laughs because he came to his interview in a suit. And he laughs about that too. But JB was a jack of all trades creative. He ended up starting a studio called Public School. Now he runs a 3PL business. He has a really interesting entrepreneurial journey. He also owns a brand of like Texan, a Texan brand, Texan lifestyle brand. So he's entrepreneurial. Just Google JB Sauceda and get into his things. He did a photo book called Mile Over Texas, where he flew over the state. He's a super interesting entrepreneurial guy. But one of the biggest compliments that I think we've ever received was when he talked about how he wanted to build his company culture in the ways that he witnessed our company culture. Mm. And it's one thing to like help somebody, get a job and move through your space. It's another thing to inspire somebody to say, like, I want to do this like you did it. And to me, that was just super profound. And I've never lost touch with JB, and I love him to death. So I like most things he says anyway, but that was a high compliment, man. That was deep.
Awesome. So can you talk about, and this is a question from Karen Jacobs.
Yes.
So what's been your favorite project or client and why?
Oh, wow. Holy cow. There's a lot of questions in that question. Um, I'll just say this crazy thing that comes to mind, because this is about following a rabbit trail, which sometimes you do as in business. We worked. We One of our mentors was a guy named Alex Boguski, and he's a very famous guy in the industry. We met him in a crazy way. Marty connected with him on LinkedIn. They had a funny exchange. I was in Boulder, Colorado, where his agency was, and I sent him a note and I said, I would love to meet you. And he said, sure, come to dinner with my wife and I. So I was like, what?
Okay.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. So I meet his wife and I meet him on the first time we meet. He starts telling me all this really personal stuff about how he's going to leave the industry, blah, blah, blah. I thought it was all a joke. I didn't know what was happening. I was looking for the TV cameras, but it wasn't. He was undergoing a major transformation in his career and life. And that's the moment we met him in. He got us engaged with a group out of Half Moon Bay, California, that is called Solve Next. Solve Next is a consultancy that has changed the way we work and the way we approach our work. We've done a lot of projects with them. I'm getting to the project part of this question. There's a few projects we did with them, but one of the things that came out of that was Alex set up this thing called Common, which was the idea of a shared brand. A shared brand that people, because brands have so much value, his idea was, what if you got a bunch of startup companies that had shared values, but they could share the value of the brand? That was the concept. It was a very intrepid idea. We came up with the idea for Common Seeds, which was a lunatic idea that we had learned more about the food industry, industrialization of agriculture, and how there was this kind of vanguard of new seed breeders. And we thought, that's an interesting space. We were doing a ton of advocacy, creative work at the time on climate, tobacco control, and cessation. So we were on cancer. We were very deep into the cause space. And so we thought this seed thing is interesting. Well, in doing research, we met a guy who Cliff Bar had hired to be their director of agricultural policy. Literally met this person on the internet. Then it led to the founders of Cliff Bar saying, we want to do a campaign. So this work, Mr. Seed, is on our site, but and you just have to watch it. It's insane. But the reason I liked the project was it was manifested by chasing down an interest or a passion, a cause. It wasn't about chasing money. It did lead to money, not money that made us rich, but an experience that made us rich, partners and relationships that still go on to this day, because the bond was really about a cause. It wasn't just about chasing dollars. So that's why I loved it. There's a lot, man. 17 years. We've had some amazing clients. We're working with Texas Children's Hospital right now. They are an unbelievable group of human beings running the largest pediatric hospital in America. Incredible people. We work with the College Board, a brand that is 120 years old, has so much change on its mind, and is riding a crazy wave right now with everything that's going on with COVID, the way college is being looked at, the shifting value proposition. So getting to work on people that are in the middle of it and are facing big challenges with their brands is really invigorating. It's intimidating sometimes too, but that's what gets you going,
Yeah. Well, so we've only got a couple minutes left, so
Yeah.
I want to talk about Butler Brothers is an E4Youth partner, and this fall we're going to be doing a Butler Brothers studio.
Yes.
For those of you that are out there in the industry, we're partnering with different companies, and essentially they can propose to members of our Creative Leadership Academy. We've got about 50 college-aged youth of color, primarily across Central Texas, but we're expanding to more and more of a national front. And they essentially pitch to the CLA, hey, we're going to do a project about this. And I wanted you just to talk about what you plan, and then what happens with the CLA. They're able to opt into that project, work with you all for 6 to 12 weeks, and at the end they come out of it building relationships, something that they can add to their portfolio. So can you talk about what you might have in store for that?
Yeah. So one of the things I want to do is I want to see what is on the mind of the student group, right? Like what is going on? What issues do they want to tackle? I just did a big creative review at the University of Texas Design School at the end of the year, and to see the work of these students, their capstone projects, and to see how much they had integrated all of the best practices of design thinking into their work, but then their creative output and expression. It was very much driven by the things that they're grappling with, looking at, and wanting to impact in the world. And that was super powerful. That's not the experience I had in college at all. Like a lot has changed, right? So starting with that inquiry from the students, and then seeing if there's overlap between the things, issues that they want to address, and what are our clients facing, right? And how could we mash some of that up? Because their perspective as problem solvers is super valuable to clients. And I think if we can find a match between what they're interested in and challenges certain clients have, we could find something really inspiring. So you and I still need to figure out how to do what I'm talking about right here,
Right.
but we haven't gotten to do that yet. But that's a notion, right?
Right.
Of how we could do it. And what is also cool about that is I think that work has the potential when they present it to blow clients away. And also just be something that is very memorable for them. Because one of our unofficial core values that I didn't share, but we have a flag in our office, it says no fake work, right? So like no fake work. We got to do something real that has real meaning to the students and has real meaning to clients. So we got to find out what that is. I don't know what it is yet, but no fake work. We'll show you the flag when you come by the studio. If we could ever go back there.
Right. Well, that's awesome. I'm really looking forward to getting together with you very soon to hammer out that process. I have complete confidence that it's going to be great. And I want to shout out to really all of our partners that we've worked with over the years. GSD&M is a key partner. They've hired dozens of our students through internships. And just the bravery of being able to let our kids touch the work, same thing with McGarrett Jesse. Our kids have done stuff for Whataburger, Lyft, and they've actually gotten to present for senior executives at those companies. So those are powerful, transformational types of experiences. And again, the secret is relationships. That's what drives it. And I completely agree. You can't fake the funk. Or as the great philosopher George Clinton says, if you fake the funk, your nose will grow.
Like Pinocchio. Well, I agree, and we'll fly the flag of no fake work together. And I should also say that our team, is super excited, and this is a way our whole team can share and cross-pollinate. And relationships, there's special relationships that develop. Personality, there's personality fits, there's people that just like, man, I can't get enough of this person and I can't get enough of that person. And
Yeah,
that's going to be exciting to see how that emerges too. Just all that mashing up. It's going to be fun.
absolutely. And for any of you other folks that are out there in the industry, we spent the past 12 years putting all the infrastructure in place, and all you really got to do is plug in. You can get in where you fit in. So here's an invitation to all of you other folks that are out there in the industry. If you want to start to make a difference today, uh, we can help you do that. And it's really the state that we're in. It's an all hands on deck type of situation. No one organization, no one person, no one company can really grapple with all of the collective discordance that we're dealing with right now. So without further ado, it is 2:04. I see that we've gone over time. Thank you all out there for being patient with me as the fill-in MC for today. This is our last virtual talk of the summer, but we will resume on September 23rd. And everybody be safe out there and mean it without being mean.
Thank you, Carl.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.